this is Kylie. Welcome back to Fem and Flow. I hope you're having a great day. Over the last several episodes, we've traced the hijacked blueprint how Gnosis was burned, how tribes were fractured, how DNA was distorted, and how inversion seeded itself into our collective story. Today, we turn a page and this begins a new arc the blueprint restored. From here forward, we are not just looking at what was lost, we are remembering what was always whole. This first episode is about the cosmological scaffolding of coherence. Because before we dive into the body, into daily life, into earth grids, and planetary nodes, we must understand what coherence actually is. Let's talk about the original design. We've talked about this before, but before inversion, there was what I call the divine integration program. It was a program, an experiential spiral, seated at the beginning of what we measure as linear time on Earth. It's not the beginning of existence itself, but it is the beginning of Earth. Outside of this program, in the eternal realms, we live in full remembrance of our divine blueprint. We exist in direct connection with Source, with no fragmentation, no amnesia, no forgetting. But this program was created as kind of a game, an initiation spiral, a place where we could enter into forgetting and then find our way back into remembering. The core question of the program is simple. If you disconnect from Source or veil your own divine blueprint, can you find your way back? The way this plays out is through the spiral. We descend into forgetting, dormant DNA, veils, amnesia, and then we spiral back upward, embodying different archetypes, integrating polarity, and remembering the fullness of who we are. Originally, this was designed to happen in white hole coherence. Forgetting was never meant to equal trauma. It was an immersive, delightful, almost playful exploration, a temporary veiling of memory that allowed us to rediscover ourselves with awe and joy. But when black hole mechanics entered, the program shifted. Forgetting turned into suffering. The spiral of seeking became distorted. Instead of remembering through joy, we remembered through pain. Instead of playful polarity, we got fractured polarity. The subconscious search for source began to show up in distorted ways. Addiction, toxic relationships, compulsive achievement, misuse of technology. All of these are still spirals back to God, but they are spirals twisted by inversion. This is why we now experience the program in three paradigms of frequency. The first one is the black hole paradigm, and this is the spiral of collapse. In the black hole paradigm, coherence is fragmented. The spiral of seeking collapses inward rather than flowing outward. Here, forgetting is heavy. It feels like separation from God is real. Pain, suffering, and distortion dominate the experience. The search for source translates into addictive cycles, trauma loops, power struggles, or obsession with material success. Every attempt to fill the void only deepens the sense of lack because the spiral collapses on itself. This is the paradigm most of humanity has been living in for thousands of years. It is why the way the world looks the way it does. War, greed, corruption, endless seeking through distorted channels. It is forgetting without remembrance. And the second is the bridge paradigm, and this is the spiral of awakening. The bridge paradigm is the in-between. It is where many seekers are now. Here, glimpses of remembrance break through the veil. You feel flashes of connection, synchronicity, awakening. But inversion still tugs at you. Old patterns of fear, distortion, or separation still creep in. You live between two worlds, one foot in black hole collapse, one foot in white hole coherence. The bridge is not easy, but it is sacred. It is the space of choice. Here you are actively deciding which spiral you will embody: collapse or coherence, inversion or restoration. Every act of coherence in the bridge strengthens the field of remembrance. And the third is white hole paradigm, and this is the spiral of coherence. The white hole paradigm is the original design of the program. It is the restoration. Here, forgetting is only a temporary veiling, never trauma. Seeking becomes joyful exploration, not desperate grasping. Life itself becomes coherence, source expressed through the body, through creation, through union. In the white hole paradigm, the spiral flows outward, infinitely generative. Instead of collapse, there is expansion. Instead of pain, there is play. Instead of distorted seeking, there is direct connection with God, expressed in every breath, every cell, every act of creation. This is where the program was meant to be lived. And this is where we are returning to the architecture of coherence, the restored blueprint, the original song. The Divine Integration Program was designed as an eternal spiral, seeded to last indefinitely. In its original form, it could have gone on forever, but it was never meant to be forever for the individual. For each soul, the program was a temporary immersion, a chosen experience, a way to step into forgetting for a time, move through the spiral of initiation, and eventually return to full remembrance of their divine blueprint. Like we talked about, the program itself was seated here on Earth, and in the beginning it was held in coherence. But the frequency constraints weren't tight enough. Black hole mechanics entered due to the lower range of frequency allowed in the program. Instead of a playful spiral of forgetting and remembering, the program became distorted, and what was meant to be a luminous initiation began expressing through trauma, pain, and collapse. Now that cycle is closing. Earth will no longer hold the program. She is graduating out of her role as a host for temporary initiation and moving back into her eternal nature. Earth is becoming a realm of full remembrance again, no longer a field for amnesia, but a sanctuary of coherence. It will be a realm where souls can build eternal lives. The Divine Integration Program, however, will not end. It will be reseeded in another realm, and this time with tighter frequency constraints. Safeguards will ensure it cannot collapse into black hole mechanics again. In that new realm, the spiral structure will remain. Dormant DNA strands to awaken, archetypal polarities to embody and balance, the journey of seeking and finding source within. But it will unfold inside white hole coherence, as it was originally intended. Forgetting will still exist, but it will not fracture into suffering. It will be a temporary veiling, a way to rediscover truth with awe and joy, not through pain and distortion. So the program continues, just not here. Earth is transitioning out of her role as a host of the spiral. She is stepping into her eternal design, no longer an experience for temporary forgetting, but a radiant field of ongoing remembrance. And those of us here now are part of that turning point, witnessing the migration of the program elsewhere, while we ourselves move with Earth into eternal coherence. So you might be asking, what is coherence cosmologically? So let's talk about it. When we talk about coherence, we don't just mean harmony. We mean the vibrational architecture that holds creation together. Coherence is the pure energetic structure of God energy. Source, in its most original sense, is an undefined field of infinite potential, pure energy before it takes form. But when that pure source takes on scaffolding, when it arranges itself into architecture, into order, into light that can move through creation, that is God energy. To be coherent is to be fully aligned with that scaffolding. Coherence means our matter state, our bodies, our cells, our lives, are entrained to pure God energy. God energy is not abstract, it's experiential. It is when everything flows in synchronicity, when miracles appear, when bliss arises naturally, when life itself feels as though it is playing in divine rhythm. Every cell of the body lit up, pulsing in divine resonance. Every strand of DNA humming the same frequency. Every breath in sync with the cosmic heartbeat. A good visual is to imagine the perfect pattern of God, a living geometric rhythm moving at a precise frequency. At first, you may be standing outside of it, feeling dissonance or separation. But the moment you step in, the moment your own field aligns, you begin moving with it. You are no longer resisting the current, you are carried by the divine motion. That is coherence cosmologically. It is what allows galaxies to spin in balance. It is what allows DNA to replicate without error. It is what allows a cell to reorganize itself as whole. Where inversion fractures and decays, coherence regenerates and radiates. Where black hole mechanics collapse, coherence expands endlessly. Coherence is the architecture of God alive in matter. To be coherent is to move in the divine symphony. Now let's talk about the architecture of the universe. If you zoom out far enough, galaxies spiral. If you zoom in close enough, DNA spirals. This is not coincidence, this is coherence. The architecture of the universe is fractal. The same patterns repeat across every scale of existence. From the way rivers branch, to the ways our lungs expand, to the spirals of seashells and storms. All of it follows the same coherent design. Sacred geometry is not abstract. It is not just lines and shapes drawn on paper. It is the living architecture of creation itself. The flower of life, the golden ratio, the spiral of pi. These are the mathematical harmonics that Source takes on when it becomes God energy, when potential arranges itself into form. The 12 or 13 strand design encoded in our DNA is not random. It mirrors the scaffolding of stars, planets, and grids. It is a living record of coherence written into our very cells. Think of it this way. The same blueprint that holds galaxies together is the one that holds your body together. The spirals you see in the heavens are the spirals within your blood, your bones, your fascia. The micro and the macro are not separate. They are reflections. This is why we are called the microcosm of the universe, because what we carry in our bodies is not different from what lives in the cosmos. We are built from the same coherent pattern. And when we restore coherence within ourselves, we are not just healing our own lives. We are realigning with the architecture of the entire universe. Our remembrance ripples outward. The fractal pattern stabilizes from DNA to body to Earth to stars. So, we've already talked about the divine integration program, how it was seated here on Earth as a temporary spiral of forgetting and remembering. And we've also seen how the program itself is not ending, but will be restarted in a different realm. This time it will be seated with tighter frequency constraints so that it cannot collapse into black hole mechanics again. There, it will remain in white hole coherence, unfolding as it was originally intended. An initiation spiral of dormant DNA awakening, archetypes embodied, and remembrance rediscovered through joy instead of suffering. But Earth is not carrying that program anymore. Earth herself is shifting. She is moving into an eternal realm. To be an eternal realm means everything exists in coherence. Every part of life follows the same divine pattern of God. There's no longer a spiral of forgetting and remembering. There is only living in remembrance, living in coherence. So now you might wonder, couldn't this shift happen instantly? Couldn't someone just flip a switch and suddenly all 12 plus 1 DNA strands are activated in every human being? Technically, yes. But in reality, most people would not be able to withstand that level of light all at once. Physically, the body would be overwhelmed. Nervous systems would short circuit. Fascia and tissues would be flooded with energy that aren't yet prepared to conduct. Hormones, blood chemistry, mitochondrial systems, all of it would be pushed far beyond what the body can regulate. Mentally and emotionally, the experience could be even more destabilizing. Imagine remembering everything at once, every lifetime, every dimension, every archetype, every layer of God consciousness without integration. Most people would shatter under the weight of so much awareness. This is why the transition must still move through the spiral. We are still going step by step through the DNA activations, the archetypal initiations, the balancing of polarities. But it is happening now at a much quicker pace. What used to take lifetimes is compressing into years, sometimes months, even weeks. And here's the beautiful part. I know I'm not the only one carrying this remembrance. Even if it hasn't surfaced widely yet, this knowledge is stirring in many. Others will begin to remember the structure of this program and start to share their own ways of describing the path out of the spiral. The language may differ, the metaphors may vary, but the essence will be the same. Humanity is being shown how to move from the temporary spiral into the eternal realm of coherence. That is exactly what the Blueprint Restored series is about. It is the manual for this transition. It is the keys and the instructions for exiting the divine integration program spiral so that you can begin to live on earth as an eternal realm in full coherence with God. This is the invitation. This is the homecoming. It's time to move from the spiral into the eternal. So welcome home. And I see now that part of my mission here was to track my own spiral in real time, right here on this podcast. I've said it before, I had no idea in the beginning what I was supposed to share or why. I remember thinking, what insight do I even have for people? I'm still trying to figure things out myself. But I chose surrender. I chose flow. Week by week, I was given what to share. Week by week, a new node was set. And later, looking back, I could see the intricate web it was weaving. Now, with this entire series, tracing how the blueprint was hijacked and showing how we can restore it, it looks like there was some kind of grand strategy. But from my earth awareness, there was no strategy. My oversoul clearly had one, though. I was simply used as a vessel, walking step by step through the spiral, showing what this initiation looks like in a lived way. And that's the key. This is not abstract. This is not information pulled from old books or teachings. This is lived experience. I have moved through this spiral, and if I can, you can too. In fact, you can move through it even faster because now the map is clear, the nodes are illuminated, and the why is revealed. Which brings us to the next piece. Because if we want to understand how this path restores in us, we have to understand the microcosm. We have to look at the body, not as biology, but as architecture. The same spiral that plays out in the cosmos is encoded in our cells. So, we're going to go way more in depth in upcoming episodes. But let's do a little intro about how our body is a microcosm. Our bodies are not afterthoughts. They are not something separate from the divine architecture. They are microcosms of the same design we see in galaxies, and stars, and grids. Fascia, blood, breath, DNA, these are not just biological systems. They are maps of coherence. They are the scaffolding of God energy expressed in matter. And this is why embodiment matters. Because restoration doesn't just happen out there in the cosmos. It reverberates into us, into our tissues and cells. And when coherence restores in us, it ripples outward into the field. It is reciprocal, body and cosmos reflecting one another, fractal to fractal. And this is also why the spiral of embodiment is necessary. Earlier, I shared how technically it could be possible to flip on all 12 plus 1 DNA strands at once, but for many, it would be too much. Physically, the nervous system, fascia, mitochondria, even the blood chemistry would be overwhelmed. Emotionally and mentally, the flood of remembrance would destabilize most people. Embodiment is what makes this transition not only possible, but natural. Instead of an overwhelming surge, each spiral step integrates. Each initiation prepares the body to hold more light, more coherence, more of the God pattern. So the body is not just a vessel we carry through this program. The body is the key to moving from the spiral into the eternal. It is the ground where the cosmic pattern lands, the temple where coherence is restored. That's why this next part of the series will take us deeper into the body itself. Because if the architecture of coherence is the scaffolding of the universe, then our bodies are the living proof of it. They show us how coherence expresses in matter: fascia as flow, blood as memory, DNA as spiral code, breath as bridge. When we understand this, the path through the spiral becomes clear. It is not about rushing or bypassing. It is about embodying each step until coherence feels effortless, until our cells are singing in alignment with God's divine pattern. And that is where we will go next. In part 2, we'll dive into the body as microcosm in detail, exploring the anatomy of coherence and how the universe itself is written into our flesh and breath. The body is the proving ground of coherence. It's one thing to talk about God energy, to glimpse it in meditation or synchronicity, but it's another thing entirely to embody it in flesh. The body is where the scaffolding of God either locks in or flickers out. That's why this process matters so much. Because coherence isn't just a concept, it's a lived rhythm. It's fascia that flows instead of tightening. It's blood that carries memory without distortion. It's DNA that activates step by step until the full song of the blueprint is restored. And this is why the spiral exists. It isn't punishment, it isn't delay, it's mercy. It's the design of how to make this transition graceful. If all 12 plus 1 strands switched on at once, it would feel like shock. But when we walk the spiral, the body is carried gently, naturally into coherence. And that's the gift of embodiment. It lets the eternal pattern of God arrive in us with ease, so we can not only survive the transition, but flourish in it. So now let's touch on the spiral of restoration. Restoration is not linear, it is spiral. Every return brings us deeper, fuller, brighter. Each act of coherence, a breath, a choice, a remembering, locks another strand of the divine integration program back into place. Every time you restore coherence in your own body, you send ripples across the planetary grid. This is why we are here. Why so many star seeds, mystics, healers, and visionaries incarnated in this cycle. We came to reseed coherence. And I see it everywhere now. I see people remembering their part of the mission. I see people talking about fascia, teaching how to release stored trauma from the body, sharing practices and insights that were once hidden. I see so many amazing people speaking amazing truth. And my message to you is keep sharing because we are not isolated anymore. In the past, those who carried these teachings may have felt alone, cut off, even persecuted. But that's not the case now. There are many of us working towards the same goal, woven together in a greater web. And the more we support each other, the stronger the field of coherence becomes. It's also important to recognize that we are each seated at different places on the spiral. Some souls came much earlier when Earth's frequency was denser, when inversion was thicker. Their path was harder. It took years, sometimes decades, to move through layers of healing or to master frequency work. Their time required that level of endurance because the density was real. But we are not in that same frequency band anymore. We are moving through higher frequency ranges now, and many of us are in the higher bridge states. At this level, coherence can return much faster. Healing doesn't necessarily take decades of training. The frequency field itself supports quicker embodiment. And I want to say this humbly because for those who walk the earlier stages, their experience was true. Their endurance was real, and we honor that. But what was true then is not necessarily what is true now. To insist it must take years and years of mastery can unintentionally discourage people, when in reality, the spiral is accelerating. I believe it is even easier now because the playbook is clearer, the grid is lighter, and the frequency is higher. What once required a lifetime can now happen in a matter of years, sometimes even faster. We don't want to spiritually bypass, but we absolutely don't need to tie this to linear years. And what I mean by that is this. Spiritual bypassing is when we try to leap over the actual inner work, avoiding our shadows, ignoring our emotions, pretending we are all love and light, while unresolved patterns remain in our body and field. That is not coherence. That is just layering light over distortion. Restoration does not bypass, it integrates. It brings shadow into light, density into flow, fragmentation into coherence. The spiral itself ensures we touch each layer, but in these higher frequencies, the process of integration can happen much more gracefully and quickly. This is not about skipping steps. It is about being in resonance with where Earth is now. The spiral is moving and we are moving with it. So, wherever you find yourself, whether you are just beginning or deep into the spiral or remembering your mission to support others, know that you are part of something much greater. We are restoring coherence together. So, now let's talk about restoration as a collective architecture. Restoration is not only personal, it's planetary. As coherence restores in the human body, it doesn't just stop with us. The body and the earth are mirrors. Both carry the same spiral architecture. Our fascia mirrors the ley lines of a planet. Our blood mirrors her rivers. Our breath mirrors her winds. Our bones mirror her mountains. Our DNA mirrors the cosmic grid. So when coherence restores in us, it naturally reverberates outward into the land, the waters, the grids. Every act of coherence in the human field awakens something in the planetary field. This is why certain places on Earth feel alive with memory. Sacred sites, temples, and natural nodes are seeded with coherent design, fractal mirrors of the same God pattern. Roslyn Chapel, the land of Israel, America as the new Atlantis, and many others. All of these hold memory fields and encoded architecture. They are not waiting for someone to worship them, but for coherent resonance to unlock them. When one body remembers, the grid remembers. It's like a tuning fork. The resonance of coherence within us vibrates against the Earth's memory fields, and they begin to sing again. This is why so many of us feel drawn to certain places, or why being in resonance can activate the land itself. We're not just restoring coherence for ourselves, we are helping Earth herself step into her eternal pattern. And we are not doing this alone. Just as the spiral is accelerating in our bodies, it is accelerating across the planet. The ley lines are quickening. The grids are becoming more responsive. Places that once felt dormant are beginning to hum again. So when coherence is restored in us, it is restored across Earth. And when Earth restores, she amplifies our coherence in return. It is a loop, a partnership, a collective architecture. And this is the great web we are reweaving, one act of remembrance at a time. So now let's wrap this episode up. This episode is the foundation stone, because coherence is not just an idea, it is the architecture of God already alive in you and alive in the universe. It is the scaffolding that holds galaxies in place, the spiral that patterns DNA, the rhythm that allows the body to know itself as whole. We've seen how the divine integration program was seeded, how inversion fractured it, and how a new program will be seeded elsewhere under tighter constraints. And we've seen how Earth herself is no longer a temporary experience of forgetting, but is shifting into her eternal nature, a realm of coherence where life itself flows in the divine pattern. We've talked about why the spiral still matters, why embodiment makes this transition gentle instead of overwhelming, why we move step by step instead of flipping everything on at once. We've seen how each act of coherence doesn't just restore us individually, but ripples into the planetary grid, awakening memory fields, ley lines, and sacred sites across the Earth. We've remembered that restoration is not linear, it is spiral, that many of us are here on mission, carrying different parts of the web. Some working through the fascia, some teaching how to release trauma, some activating grids, some simply choosing coherence in their daily lives. All of it is part of the same greater remembering. And we've come to see the body as the proving ground of this architecture, the place where coherence locks in, the place where God's scaffolding becomes flesh. Because the architecture of the universe is not quote unquote out there. It is playing in your own cells right now. That is where we go next. In the next episode, we will turn inward into the body. We will see how coherence expresses through fascia, blood, breath, DNA, and more. And we will begin to understand how embodiment is not only the key to our personal restoration, but to Earth's restoration as well. The song has always been playing. The Divine Integration Program never truly left. And now, in this moment of history, we are remembering the melody together. So I love you all, and subscribe, and go subscribe on Patreon as well. I love you and have a great week.